Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Global Adventure Show with travel writer Debbie Stone. So we're so excited because this is kind of a beginning of the series of Alaska with travel writer Debbie Stone, who we call her Fire Monkey. But it's not her first time going to Alaska. But she went to remote Alaska and she did a few parks that are just like, wow, she did it. She got there and we're so excited. And, can I say jealous? Today she's going to be talking about her visit to Wrangell-St. Elias National Park. And, you can look at the episode notes for the link to our article, which is up on nationalparktraveling.com. But we are jealous, but there's amazing history and beauty, right? That's what all our national parks give us. And so excited. So welcome back, Fire Monkey. How are you?
Doing good. And yes, I was, I visited some of these remote places. I lived in Alaska a number of years ago in the early 80s and after working in Denali National Park, and have been back a number of times. But in my quest to see and visit all the national parks, there were still several that I needed to get to. Some of the more remote ones, the ones that are a little bit harder to get to and involve a little bit more effort and sometimes expense. And so my husband and I were in Alaska for about 3 weeks, trying to reach some of these ones that we had left for the end, so to speak.
And I think that's what, everyone has these goals of getting to all the national parks, right? And then some are far flung in Alaska and also in Hawaii. Hawaii is a little easier maybe. And some of the parks like Denali in Alaska, a little easier too. But not like the lower 48, right? But then, Wrangell-St. Elias, got to get that, I want to say Elias, right? Elias. But how far and remote is that? And I know, next month on the podcast, we're going to be talking about Katmai, and that's really fascinating. The history of the geological history there and the bears. I can't wait for that. But I'm really excited about this one too, because like they're remote. Like, how do you get there? Where are they in the state of Alaska?
Yeah, well, I think people need to know like a reference point, and so I usually start with Anchorage because everyone knows Anchorage, and it's about you can take to get to Wrangell-St. Elias. You can use an air taxi or you can drive. We drove, and if you drive from Anchorage, it's about 5 hours to a town called Chitina, which is where the road, it's called the McCarthy Road, which is has a reputation for being a rough road. But this road will lead you straight to the park and to the gateway communities of McCarthy and Kennecott. So once again, you can take an air taxi, which will take you in no time to get there from airstrips in Glen Allen and Chitina as well. And, or else you can take, the car and drive. And we wanted to kind of see what it was like to drive, because sometimes it's the journey and it's interesting, and we're not afraid of rough roads. At least my husband's not in terms of driving it, but, it's a 60-mile road and it takes you a couple hours. So basically you're going to have a 7-hour journey if you're coming straight from Anchorage. And, the town, the road is when I say rough, it has a lot of potholes. It has a lot of curvy areas. It's, although it's paved, about 20 miles of that is paved. And, there are car companies that won't rent to you, if you're going to do that road. Even the, National Park Ranger at the Visitor Center in Copper Center will tell you they discourage you from doing it, and there's signs that say, don't do this kind of thing. But
we did at this point not recommended.
Yeah, exactly. You saw that sign, the picture, but yeah, you know what? We did it, and we thought when we were driving it, we're both saying to each other, this really isn't as bad as we thought. We've been on worse roads than this, and you just take your time.
You just came back from American Samoa, and that was a little worse, right? Going through Samoa a little bit.
Well, they're just, I mean, it's just, rough roads that are not, maintained as well as they could be. And it's okay. It's bumpy. It's got ruts, all those kinds of
just
things.
Slow
but
down.
If you have, you slow down, but plus you're also slowing down to be able to look around and see the scenery and, take note of it. And then when you get there, you're kind of like, oh, cool, I made it. I did the McCarthy Road, kind of thing. So you'll get there and you park your car, and then you have to cross the pedestrian bridge. So it's basically you have parked your car on the other side of this bridge that you can only walk across with your luggage. And then you take a shuttle to either McCarthy or Kennecott. And we decided to stay in Kennecott. And so the lodge there, Kennecott Glacier Lodge, they will pick you up and shuttle you to their lodge as part of the cost that you're paying to stay there. So it's kind of just a big adventure and a journey to get there. But I think to me, that's all part of the fun,
I agree. And I love the picture of your husband carrying your luggage across the bridge. I'm just saying, I saw it. Was that him? I just kind of figured that. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, he's having fun. While you take a photo and go, look at him. Wheel that over that, but this is the thing. You're going off in the wilds, and I love it. I'm the person who will drive doing that. And I mean, you've been all around the world, Africa and all of that. And that's my background. And I'm like, I'm driving, and we do great. Actually, as we record this, the underplate of our car is falling off from potholes getting out of a hurricane. So anyway, I'm just saying, and you couldn't really see or do much about it because everyone's moving, and anyway, it's a whole other world, but you can do those roads. And I think the most important thing is patience. And I like to do park roads real slow. I'm annoying to people because like you, I want to look and I want to pull over if I can and take pictures. I want to smell the roses, right? So the scenery to me is incredible about both parks, honestly. So this was like a mining region, right? So this was like the major, it was a commerce area for mining, copper. Yeah. So that's part of its big history.
And people should know, this park is the largest national park in the U.S. So, Wrangell-St. Elias is about 13 million acres. And so, you put Yellowstone, Yosemite, and Switzerland in there, and you get Wrangell-St. Elias. And, it's vast and huge. And so people pick where they want to be, and they usually, are in Kennecott, or McCarthy. And you can do a lot, if you enjoy the outdoor adventure, but also if you enjoy history, because like you just mentioned about the copper mining. So, both of these towns were around the whole copper mining industry. And Kennecott itself not only has, the glacier has a beautiful glacier and mountains like everywhere around that national park. In fact, that national park is known for 9 of the 16 highest peaks in the country. So this is a really incredible alpine wonderland. But there's if you don't, if you're more interested in the history, then that whole town there is a mining town, and there are buildings left over from became a ghost town, and then it was kind of revived with the National Park Service when it came in. And now you can tour these buildings, you can go tour the mine, and you can, get that feel of, walking back in time and seeing where these people, a lot of them immigrants who came to work in the mines, lived and worked. And if they wanted to play, they went over to McCarthy, because that's where you could get gambling, you could get women, and you could drink. But in Kennecott, you could not. So, yeah, so that's the difference in the towns.
Well, but this is the interesting thing, too. I mean, I love the fact that you get all the history, and, national parks are not always just about the nature. And I don't say just as a put down to nature, as we all know, right? We're big on nature here. But I always want to say, like, the history goes and ties it in, because it ties in the people. And that's an important thing when we think about how parks even stay. It's about also preserving the history. It's not just I don't want to use the word just again. It is the nature and the history that really make these places so special. And we want to preserve the human history. And that was also an added protection for the nature by having the human history, wouldn't you say too? When you go there,
Absolutely.
and it shows how people coexisted with nature too. Did you find that while you were there? Because to me, Alaska is like, it is the last frontier, right? So it does, I mean, people lived out there in incredibly harsh environments. Beautiful, but harsh and cold. You got a glacier in your backyard.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, exactly. And people who choose to live that life, and it's incredible, and it's fascinating to hear from people. We had a guide when we did the glacier walk. Then we went on to the glacier, the Root Glacier, which is the one that's right accessible from the town. And she was living there. She was living there full time, and so there were a couple dozen residents that live there full time. So people choose this. It's not something that's forced upon them. They choose to live in these places. But in Kennecott, it's a National Historic Landmark. The mines, the Kennecott Mines landmark is right there, and that is a major attraction, I think, for people who come there, because it is a place that, like I said, it encompasses this mill town and the ginormous mill that is like 14 stories high, where the copper ore was processed. So once again, I'm a proponent of taking guided tours, because otherwise, you really can't learn that much about things, especially if you can't even go into the mine unless you do a guided tour. So you learn about the history of the town. How did this whole copper scene happen? And, goes back to, the 1900s and the discovery of a mine there. And then, that's how it all started. And it's at its peak. There were probably about 100 buildings and 600 employees that were in that town, and it was a very profitable mine. So I think they had like about $300 million worth of copper and silver that they produced there. But it did close in about 1938, and it became a national monument in 1980, and then finally a national park in 1998. So it took a while for things to happen. But I think, like you said, preserving that history, the human history, the environmental history, what industry was there that created that whole area that was nothing before that. And then, of course, the most incredible landscape that you can explore as well. So there's so much in this national park, and it is, to me, one of the most fascinating national parks that I've been to, as well as one of the most beautiful places.
What was it for you that made it more fascinating? Was it that backdrop of glacier? And then, it just, when I was going through the photos, I'm like, wow, this is, to me, it's so diverse in so many ways. And even the way the mine is and the building, I don't know, man. It's almost idyllic, but harsh times come with the winter. You know what I mean? You kind of,
I think
it's romantic in a way. You know what I mean by that?
It is, Alaska has a romantic quality to it, but if you ever have lived there, I've lived there a number of years, and I lived in Fairbanks, and I experienced winters in Alaska. It isn't quite that romantic when you have to live there and deal with some of the harshness of the environment and the climate. But for me, this national park was fascinating because of the fact that the history was so rich there, and because of the scenery, which was so incredibly breathtaking. I loved being able to take a walk onto a glacier and tour that wonderful, mass of ice, and put on those crampons and get to do that. And to me, that was, a wonderful experience. The experiences there to me were very unique. The combination of history and geology and landscape, I think, was what did it for me. And it's just so picturesque, really picturesque.
And because the hiking seems to be a big deal that you can do out there is get out there and really explore and, get close to it. What blows my mind is like you have a glacier, then you have wildflowers. That's so.
I know.
I felt
nearby,
that even
yes,
about Mount
not
Rainier,
on the
right?
glacier.
But nearby, and
Yeah,
I'm just going, how did you do this?
yeah, yeah.
How did you do this?
It is pretty crazy because basically it's the glacier itself doesn't have life except for what our guide pointed out, which are these lichen covered rocks that they call glacier moss balls, and they're on the glacier, but there isn't any really life on the glacier. So the wildflowers are on the trail to get to the glacier, but the glacier itself is just, it's stunning, and you can, go walk by these crevasses and these blue pools and the ice falls and all these little canyons of ice. And it's amazing to me when you're on a glacier how much there is that's so interesting to see, the formations in a glacier. It's not just like a block of ice, it's just, it has all these crevices and interesting, pieces in it. And to me, it's fascinating to be able to actually walk on it and actually look at it from that perspective, as opposed to like, oh, look, there's a glacier in the distance kind of thing.
The glaciers blow my mind. Like it blows my mind. Like just, I can't get past it because it's just so otherworldly to me. And I know you've seen glaciers and ice and, Iceland and Norway. You've been all over, right? And then this is in our back.
Yeah.
I mean, even when you think about New Zealand and everything, right? And you're in your own country. So does it feel like it's still part of America when you're there? Or do you feel like you're in a different country, even though it's in America? Because America really has so many diverse experiences,
Well, I think Alaska is an entity of itself. And
that's what I mean,
getting to Alaska takes effort, whether you're going to drive the road or whether you're going to fly, it still takes effort, and it's a ways away, like Hawaii is too. But Alaska has much more extreme, of an environment, and so I think it really is its own entity, and people do feel removed from the lower 48 in that respect. And so, I always felt that way when I lived there, and when I visit there, I always feel like I'm going somewhere far, kind of thing. And then when I'm there, you feel like, gosh, this is the remote feeling of being away from everything else, and especially in those national parks, because there is so much beautiful landscape, and in Alaska there isn't a complete road system. There's only a few road systems, and then the rest of the time you have to take bush planes, take regular planes, or you have to take boats to get places. And so the effort that you make is definitely well rewarded, but it's certainly effort, but it does have that quality of being, I'm somewhere really, really remote.
Special. Yeah, I think it's because also when we're on the mainland, the lower 48, they're left out of the news in a way, like Hawaii and Alaska is not part of the U.S. conversation as much. You know what I mean? Even on like when you watch the weather, yeah, it's there a little bit, but not, it's just different. They tend to ignore it. And yet it's like, here's this huge wilderness that we have and this history of people that were really brave going out there and hard souls. They're salt of the earth souls that could do that, what they did. So you stayed in Kennecott. That was your first place. That was the thing, Kennecott, right? The Glacier Lodge. I want to touch on that. Is that an actual national park lodge when you were there? Because I know people love to do these lodges.
No, there is no national park lodge there in Wrangell-St. Elias. This is a private lodge, but it is the only lodge in town. You can stay also in McCarthy, which has a few other places to stay. We wanted to be right there in the Milltown area and have access to the glacier and to the whole mill and the history. So that's why we chose there. Also, we had heard it was a very unique place. It's kind of, I guess you can say it's a replica, basically. It's not the real thing, but it is a replica of the mining buildings that were there.
Yeah.
And so it's a very sweet place to stay. The staff is great. The food is delicious. It's perfect because you can just walk down the road and be right there in the mill town, and then you can take the trail a couple miles to the glacier. So it's a very, I think, a very convenient location, and we enjoyed being there. I highly recommend staying there.
That's cool. That's cool. I didn't know, because I know it's family run, but sometimes it's like a concessionaire will run. I didn't know if they were a concessionaire. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, because concessionaires and it's different. But oh my gosh, this is so cool. I think it's the color of the buildings that I like. That's what it is. It's the color.
Yeah.
It's that red.
Definitely. That red. The barn red is what I call it, the barn red. So, no, it's definitely, I think, as I said in my story, it's a kind of a dream for photographers. It's just, you can't take a bad picture. It has this wonderful dramatic backdrop of the mountains and the glacier. And then, it's got these barn red buildings with white trims. And so it's a beautiful spectacle just to be able to see it, and then to be able to explore it, just really enhances that whole experience. But it's well worth the effort. I completely, wholeheartedly recommend people, if you go to Alaska and you want to visit one of the more remote parks, do it.
And get guides. Because this is new terrain, for many of us. Glaciers and hiking, even putting on the crampons. I don't even know how to put those on, you know what I mean? So it's like, you got to learn how to do that. So having a guide is a good idea, right? So, and you worked with 2 different guides, and the links are all in Debbie's article, which is linked in the episode notes. Again, it's up on nationalparktraveling.com. You just type in Wrangell-St. Elias. I did it right. Did I say Elias? I did.
But yes, you did.
But I was going to say, and the thing is that you got to see an ice fall. That's insane.
Yeah. So it's quite incredible. But this glacier, when you think about it, was about 2 million years old. And our guide told us that it was close to at the thickest part about 500 feet thick. So you can imagine that it's insane when you think about how those are formed, and and then it's we talked a little bit about recession and glacier recession, and this one is not retreating as much as it is in height. Laterally, it's more. It has not retreated like other glaciers I've seen where it's really retreated, and you're walking back and you're like, oh, the glacier used to be there and now look where it is now. This one has not done that. It's more the height, more the thickness, basically.
So you're getting the conversation. The conversation of climate change when you go to national parks. Our first one, first eye opening of it was in Sequoia National Park, because of air pollution and things like that. And I remember going, wow, okay, we're not getting political. We're being just straight up scientific facts here. This is fantastic. So I know we've touched on this on some other interviews, but going here with the glaciers and it again connected to our country. And I did an interview about 2 years ago, maybe. The lady wrote a memoir about living on an island in Alaska, and it was called Fire and Ice. It's just, I'm off the top of my head, but I know it's Fire and Ice. And her husband was a photographer and photographing people. And she ended up learning. I mean, she married this guy and thinking, oh, off we go. And they lived in this little cabin and it burned down and he got burned. It was a crazy story.
Wow.
And here she was coming from a la-di-da family to now she's going to have to learn how to skin seals and all. I mean, she was living with the Inuits at this point. And so I was asking her about the island and I said, well, how do you think now with climate change? She says it's the first island that had to evacuate because of climate change in our country.
Yeah.
First place.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm like, what? So all the people, those communities, those families, she says, yes, they've had to move their entire community and town. And I'm like, okay, this is getting real. And I know traveling this country, it's real, And there are normal things like hurricanes and wildfires, but it's escalating, it seems to me, a little
Right,
bit more than normal.
right.
So when you were there, did they have that discussion? You're saying a bit about the glacier retreating, but did they mention anything about how climate change is, or for people to kind of get an understanding of it?
I think they touched upon it. I think, the guides, I think it's also, the guides provide some basic information about things like that. I think when it comes to a glacier, its size and all those important facts. I think they also wait to see what participants in the group want to explore further. So if beyond what they're going to tell you, you can have conversations about other things. And, it depends on what people, I think, are really interested in hearing about. And because there were I think there was only 4 people in our group, which was just my husband and I and another couple and the guide. So we had a very, intimate tour. And so we could speak about many things, because there weren't that many people. We didn't have to worry about, the fact that there's, 10 other people there. So I think that was good. And she was very open about being able to talk about that as well. So I find that, I find it depends on the guide, I think, per national park or whatever you're doing, as to how open they are to discussing certain issues.
I agree. But you had an epic adventure. Everyone,
I did.
Check it out at nationalparktraveling.com. Fire Monkey, which is really Debbie Stone, amazing travel writer and photographer who really explores the world. How many countries now? Because you're on your way to Japan, I know. But how many countries now do you think?
We're getting closer to 100. So I always say about 100, but I don't think I'm quite there. But I am done with the national parks now. So
do you ever kind of forget? Oh, you've done them all. All of them.
I have. We have done them all.
Oh, it's time for them to add a new one just to mess with you. That is fantastic. Did you celebrate that fact? Which one was the last one? What was the last one for you?
The last one was Gates of the Arctic.
Ooh.
Yeah. Tough one to get to. Really tough.
That's the tough one. Yeah, I was going to say, that's a biggie. That's
very
a biggie.
Tough.
After that, did you have like a little champagne or a celebration that you did them all? Like,
you know what? I don't think the realization, I think we, knew that was the last one, but I think, we didn't go crazy. we were exhausted. So.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing about you go to these places and then you're hiking all day and you're like, can I just have a hot shower? Can I have a hot shower?
Yeah.
That's
some places you stay in are very, some of the places, the Arctic especially, they can be rustic, so it's, so you have to just accept that and
it's temporary.
But it's temporary. And in order to see something that you really, truly want to see, and that's incredible, you have to realize that those conditions are going to be, that's what it is. You're not going to be staying in some
If you
Marriott,
want home, stay home. Yeah, if you want home, stay home. And that's how I look at everything, is it's temporary. As full-time travelers, we go through all kinds of bumps in the road. Like we just left this hurricane situation. I'm like, well, this is temporary for us, luckily. And, thinking about everyone there and going, it's temporary. And that's a beautiful thing. And then you can go, oh, now we're here. Oh, look at this, So, but if you want to find that beauty and that history, dig in and go for those remote experiences, because even if you're, gritting your teeth against something, like if you do not like the bathroom situation, how many times have we all had to share bathrooms and all kinds of stuff, especially Europe? And, there's bed and breakfast that you have to share a bathroom and a shower with people, even not necessarily get in at the same time. I don't mean it that way, but
absolutely,
absolutely. It's like, so, we're not in COVID anymore, but so what? Like, it's temporary and you're having an experience. And even if you don't like it, it's going to make you grow a little bit. Every time we step out of our comfort zone, we're growing somewhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it.
Absolutely. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to be uncomfortable for a little while, you know?
I think
it's
so.
Okay.
For a little while. Yep. Thanks so much, Fire Monkey. Everyone, stay tuned for the October podcast where we talk about Katmai. Oh, I can't wait. We're going to talk about bears and we're going to talk about volcanoes. Stay tuned. Thanks for listening to Big Blend Radio's Global Adventures Show with travel writer Debbie Stone. Debbie is here every fourth Tuesday. You can keep up with us at bigblendradio.com.